tell you how good a shape my brother was in. My brother was the kind of guy that if you were going to go fishing with him at a fishing hole and it was 5 miles away, he would pick up his pole, he'd look at you in the eye and he'd say, "Race ya," and he'd take off running. That's the kind of guy he was. They go back to the doctor the very next day. The surgeon says, "We need you in surgery tomorrow morning." Sean's like, hold it. I'm running a state track meet in 2 weeks. I graduate high school in a month. I'm not going into surgery tomorrow morning. I got things to do. The doc says, a month is no big deal. It's probably a really bad idea, but you got your month. He ran the state track meet. He won the state track meet. He graduated high school. The very next day after he graduated high school, they cut off half of his tongue. The radiation and the chemotherapy was pretty bad. About 3 weeks into his first round of radiation and chemotherapy, Sean comes to me and says, "I need you to come with me tomorrow. I need you to come with me to get my radiation and my chemotherapy." Trip to town? Cool. I'm in. I didn't realize why he asked. He asked because he needed me to drive him home. I was 14 years old. I didn't have a driver's license, but he would stick his head out the passenger side window and throw up until he passed out. That's how bad the radiation and the chemotherapy was hitting him. I went with him. I drove him home. The 6-week cycle of radiation and chemotherapy is over. He's feeling better. He's joking about the fact that they took off half of his tongue. He's joking about the fact that he's won. And then they find more cancer. The second surgery takes off the rest of his tongue. The second surgery Sean goes through takes off a 1-inch section of his bottom jaw. His mouth is an open sore. Right before he goes in for a radiation and chemotherapy appointment, I see him stick something in the glove box of the car. Can of Copenhagen. He's still dipping. He's putting this stuff in a mouth that's nothing but an open sore. When he comes out, I show him the can. I'm like, "Dude, the hell is this?" He says, "You know what? It's all I've got left. Don't tell Mom." That's the addiction level that he was dealing with. He had to have it. It was all he had left. The radiation and the chemotherapy cycle is over. He's gaining weight. He's getting better. And they find more. The third surgery that he goes through takes off his pectoral muscle. Takes the lymph nodes out from underneath his arms. Takes so much muscle and tissue out of his neck that he has to practice with weights for 2 weeks before he can lift his own head and come home from the hospital. The radiation and the chemotherapy is so bad this time, they have to put in a feeding tube in his throat. That's this tube that you see coming out of his nose. It goes in his nose, down, and into his belly. That's the only way he can eat. His teeth are becoming so loose that he's pulling them out and giving them to my mom, who's putting them in a jar to hope that when he gets better, they'll be able to put them back. The entire track team comes to the house to bring him the track medals that he won at the state track meet that year. They bring 28 medals. They pin his medals on his chest, they put his plaque on his belly, and they take this last picture. This is in our living room. This is not in a hospice. This is not in an intensive care ward. Sean has come home to die. When they talk about that next surgery, when they find more cancer on him, and he talk about another surgery, he says no. He says, "I'm going home. You're not cutting on me anymore. You're not giving me any more poison. I'm going home." This picture is in our living room. What finally takes Sean is, you can see that tube in his throat. That's called a tracheotomy. That's a hard plastic tube that's cut into his throat so that he can breathe. Remember, his bottom jaw is gone. All that you see here is cancer. It's not a bottom jaw, it's cancer. The way that he finally dies is that cancer grows so large, it snaps. that hard plastic tube. Sean literally chokes to death on cancer. I'm here, hopefully, to be the voice in your head. When that guy thumps that can and goes, hey man, you want to try this? Or you're at that party and somebody pops a cigarette out of that pack and says, hey man, you want a cigarette? I want to be the voice in your head. I want to be the voice that says, maybe not. I saw something at school the other day that makes me think, maybe this isn't a good idea. There's help. There's Venomosity, Arizona Smokers Hotline. All of these things are out there to help you guys stop. They're out there to help you help the people you care about that are using to stop. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Thanks, guys.